Yes, viewers of the community show and friends of the Civic Space TV, many thanks for joining us this particular afternoon. Today we shall have a topic that is, I believe, very pertinent to our environment, but also to our sustainable growth as planet Earth. And this will be around waste management and recycling. As the Sustainable Development Goal number 14 and 15 speak around life on land and life underwater. We believe that waste management has a very big role to play in terms of sustaining or managing life on land, but also life underwater because of obvious reasons that we know. So today we shall be speaking about waste management and recycling, the possible mechanisms, and of course the advantages that come with recycling of waste. But also we have seen so many campaigns being run by different campaigns, to ensure that wastes are recycled and are not just disposed of in a way that harms the environment. So today, the community show is joined by a panel of distinguished ladies and gentlemen to enable us understand and explore the conversation around waste management and recycling. So I will just introduce them right away so that our viewers can get to know who is with us. The first panelist on the show is Irene. Irene is an accountant by profession. She's also a human rights defender, an environmentalist, and also executive director of Women for Green Economy Movement Uganda. Irene, many thanks for joining us. Kindly turn on your microphone and say hello to our viewers.
Thank you very much, Moses. Viewers, you are all welcome. And we hope to discuss more on the waste management and recycling as our topic today. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Irene. I also go ahead to welcome and introduce our second panelist by the names of Rachel Amongin. Rachel is a communications practitioner and an environment defender. Rachel, many thanks for joining us. Good afternoon. Kindly say hello to our viewers.
Good afternoon to you all. Very humbled to be a part of this program or this show, and I hope to discuss further so that we can learn from each other. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Irene. Of course, we are expecting more panelists to join us, but the third panelist who is already here with us is Mr. Bwayo Benedicto from Green Growth, Climate Change, and he's from Green Growth, but also is a climate change and environmental sustainability expert. Mr. Bwayo, many thanks for joining us. Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, viewers and everybody. I'm happy to be here. Bwayo Ben, my name. Big Ben is the common name. Thank you.
Okay, Big Ben, let's just begin with you. You're the expert on the show. I mean, to the viewer who is listening to this show and maybe has no idea about the importance of recycling waste or the importance of waste management or recycling, could be asking themselves, why is this even important? Why do we need to recycle waste? I mean, waste is waste. Why should we recycle it? After all, it's even dirty and not good for use anymore. So to that layman out there who has no idea about sustainable development, no idea about the need to have a green environment, no idea about the need to protect the environment, what would be your opening remarks to that layperson?
Yes, thank you very much, Kidega. Actually, for starters, I usually want to bring it to a layman's context, like the way you have said. I look at waste as after a primary use of a given product, then the secondary use is waste. So waste is something that is not desirable after its primary use. So I look at that as waste. And when I look at waste being undesirable, that means waste has properties, which properties, some of them are hazardous. They can cause harm to human health, then also can cause harm to the environment, then also to the soil inclusive of the organisms, the soil fauna and flora. So waste in environment is not a desirable practice. What we need to do is we need to properly handle waste after the primary use. Then the waste product should be handled. That means in a storage, transportation, and also where you manage it from. So waste management is a concern for everybody, especially when you look at now the cities, the towns, the homesteads, households. Actually, waste management starts at households. Then when people come together, brought about by population pressure. When people increase in numbers, that means consumption increases and also use of given products, which in the end come up with the waste. Then also man in nature, man has waste. So we have categories of waste. We can have solid waste and the liquid form of waste. Under solid waste, we have different categories. And the sources are different. And this waste is categorized depending on the sources. These sources could be industrial, agricultural. We can have also household waste. Then also we have waste from the sources determine the type of waste. Then importantly, we also have waste in terms of, we call it residual or human waste from the byproducts of food. Consumption of food. If you consume food, that means there is waste that will come later. So municipal waste or sludge is a big problem as a form of waste because it is hazardous. It can cause harm. Its handling is not easy. Then we have also other forms of waste that's not easy to handle. Could be the pests from agriculture. Then we also have waste from medical waste. Then we also have other forms of waste that is not easy to handle. But important to note is that waste is determined by by sources, where it comes from, and then how it affects the population. So, in handling waste, we acknowledge that we need to use the available forms like resizing. You can resize, you can reuse, you can recycle. So given our topic today of handling waste and how is it a problem to a community and especially cities and towns, we shall dwell major on this, but generally that could be the background for waste. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Big Ben. That was quite elaborate. I think let me give everyone a chance to just give us their opening remarks and their perspective regarding waste management and recycling. So we have heard from Ben. Let's hear from Rachel. Rachel Amongin, you are an environmentalist defender. What is your own perspective? What could you have to say to that layman who has no idea, who simply wakes up, uses a given bottle and just dumps it anywhere and doesn't appreciate the need for us to recycle and manage waste? What would you have to say to them?
Thank you, Kidega, for this opportunity. And based on what Ben has already talked about, to a layman, I would explain waste as something that at the moment or at that very instance we do not require or we do not want it. But like he said, it can be recycled, it can be resized, it can be reused. But as an environmental defender in the communities that I've worked with, there is something that I've realized that very few people know what waste is and what waste management is, or how to manage the waste that you have. It all goes back to one thing, that we have a law. Okay, we are known in Uganda to have very good laws, but we have a problem of implementing them. So if you take an instance of Rwanda, they have regulations that if you poorly dispose of waste, you either get a fine or you end up being arrested. So to a layman's, we really need to keep advocating for something to do with waste management, or we need to keep educating different communities based on that, because very many people do not know, they do not know that even spitting in public, things to do like that, with that, it's a form of waste management. I mean, misuse of your dumping areas, or in any way, in different communities, if you go in depth into the villages that have gone to, there are very few homes or families that have proper disposal areas, either if it's human waste or it's any other kind of waste, solid waste or something of that sort. So I think this discussion or this webinar is really a very good topic, because it's going to help us let people know that there are certain things that we take for granted or that we do every day, like chewing gum and, place it under a chair or throwing it, that it is waste. We look at it as something very small, but it has repercussions in the end, because and there are repercussions for waste misuse or how we dispose of our waste, but also the advantages of waste management in terms of it reduces pollution, it creates a better environment. The other thing is also it's a form of employment for different people. You see, the youth of nowadays, I'm one of them. We have this notion of having white collar jobs, but nowadays we have to learn to create jobs, and we have to become job creators other than malingering around the area of having to be a job seeker. So I see waste management as an opportunity for the youths, whether learned or educated or whatever education background. It is also an opportunity. The other thing, it's an opportunity for us to innovate different things. I think, one country in West Africa where they are investing in the use of bottles to construct houses. So it's also a way of managing waste. And I think it is also being initiated into Uganda, but very few people are taking it very serious. So I really love the topic, and I'm very happy to meet you people. And I hope that our message during this webinar gets out there. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that, Rachel. Irene, it is only fair that I give you an opportunity to also give us your opening remarks and also speak to the layman out there who has no idea or who attaches no importance to this conversation. What would be your opening remarks to them?
Thank you very much, Moses. Good afternoon, listeners and my fellow panelists. To me, as our topic, waste management and recycling, to a layman's language, to people in villages who really want to know this is a great topic. And I think as Ugandans, we are facing a challenge of poor disposal of waste, of poor disposal of waste, which leads to climate change, impacts. When it rains in Uganda, especially in Kampala, you find that the whole country is full of floods, and to a layman's land, that person cannot even understand that floods are caused by poor disposal of waste. So you find that the way we poorly dispose our waste in our environment, we are contributing to destroy our environment. At the same time, we are causing climate change impacts like floods, drought, and these impacts affect mostly the vulnerable women in families, but they are unaware of how best or what causes these impacts that are taking place. So I think in this webinar, we need to really clarify on how best we can recycle the waste and how best we can protect our environment from being impacted by poor waste disposal. Maybe to add more on this, we can talk about how can we basically control or reduce on the poor disposal of waste. As we discuss on, we shall talk about the 3 areas that can help us to reduce or to control the poor waste management in the country, and how we can really save our environment from climate change impacts and from other climate disasters. Thank you very much. That's my opening remarks.
Irene, what are those 3 areas? Maybe to someone who doesn't know them.
Yeah, thank you, Moses. The 3 areas we have the reduce. That's the first one. I want to air them out in their order. We have reduce. Yeah, we have reduce, and by saying reduce, we are meaning that you buy, when we go in supermarkets or in shops, we buy products. So like you've gone in the supermarket, you bought a sweet. After eating that sweet, the kavera, you just dispose it out. So in that, it means that we are not reducing, or instead we are increasing on poor waste disposal. So when we talk about reduce as the first R, we mean that you can buy in bulk. Buying products in bulk helps us, or helps you to reduce on poor disposal of waste. Because when you buy in bulk, let's say you bought sugar, like 100 kilograms of sugar. So that sack you bought, it is going to stay for long. You are not going to dispose it. But when you buy 1 kilogram of sugar, trust me, it will not even spend like a day, or like a week. So that kavera is going to be disposed of, and it is going to cause a problem to the environment, and it will affect us, especially the vulnerables in villages who basically base on agriculture. The crops are going to be destroyed by climate, by floods and drought. So they are going to lack what to eat. And we can also use another example of reuse. From reduce, we go to reuse. What do we mean by reusing? Reusing, it's the second R that will help us to dispose properly the waste, hence protecting the environment from climate change impacts. In reusing, we can invest in reusable bags. Just on social media, Rwanda is bringing this idea of reusable bags. I think in Uganda, if we can really adopt that, it can help us in poor disposal it can help us to improve on ways of disposing waste. So these are the bags that after using them, after maybe you bought your sugar from it, after the sugar is done, you go back, you reuse it. It means it is not going to get old. It is not going to be disposed of. So in that, it will protect the environment, and it will reduce on the poor waste disposal. Then we talk about recycling. On recycling, this is the process of reusing what you've already used. You're recycling something. So it means, you are remanufacturing something. So it means when you get like a bottle of soda, sometime back, before the introductions of disposable bottles like Coca-Cola, in our yards, when we are still young, we didn't have these disposable bottles of sodas, but we had these the bottles that can be recycled, or the bottles that can be reused. So I think sometime back, we were better off in protecting the environment from poor disposal than this, because now every company is producing a plastic bottle. So a plastic bottle will really be disposed. That is automatically after using it, you just dispose it, which is not good to our environment. Or maybe we can always carry our own bottles, like the drinking bottles. After buying something, or like our soda, we just pour there. We be keen on our environment. The bottle I have dumped here or I have disposed of, another person will come and put another bottle. Another person will come and put another bottle. So you find the bottles we are disposing of, they are going to go in the soil. It will lead to soil contamination. It will lead to water contamination, and at the same time, air pollution. So when you do research, you find that 40% of litter, waste we can call it as litter, like we are littering, that's disposing these unusable or unreusable things in our environment. So you find that 40% that we are dumping everywhere will be banned, and it will lead to air pollution. You find, and this air pollution will also cause the increase on the green gas emissions. So that's why when you look in the Act of Climate Act, which the government of Uganda enacted into law in last year, you find that Uganda, we are contributing something big according to how we are producing the carbon gas emissions. So you find that the more we dispose, the more we shall increase carbon gas emissions, and the more we are going to continue destroying our environment, hence causing climate change impacts. Thank you very much. Those are the 3 areas. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you very much, Irene. I must say I've also learned. I didn't know some of those 3 areas, but you've taught us, and I believe some of our viewers have also picked something. I am told that Mr. Baluku Alex has joined us. Baluku is a science and water journalist, and also his areas of focus are health, wildlife, and environment. Mr. Baluku, many thanks for joining us. You found when colleagues were giving their opening statements and trying to let the ordinary or layman understand the essence and importance of waste management and recycling. So I'll give you the same opportunity to, of course, introduce yourself first, and then give us your opening statement and what you think about waste management entirely.
Respected Mr. Kidega, my fellow panelists, and my dear viewers, a very good morning. My name is Alex Baluku. As Kidega has introduced me, I am a science and water journalist. I'm also a founder of RwenzoriDaily.com, a member of the National Association of Science Writers, and I'm also the mobilizer for Kasese Municipal Development Forum, where I sit representing my fellow journalists around Kasese district. I'm also happy to inform you that I was recently elected the chairperson for Rwenzori Peace Journalism Press Club. Following that brief introduction, allow me to express my thoughts about the subject, which is waste management and recycling. On 5th June 2022, we are celebrating World Environment Day. And I am happy that we are joining the rest of the world to share ideas around environment. On this day, I think it is a day to make people more accountable for the environmental damages they do. It is only when the people and the governments collectively effort to preserve the environment that things will begin to change. And it is my humble request to to all the viewers that you must participate in the events in your own capacity. wherever you are, even if you forward a simple message for environment protection from your smartphone, I think that would be able to change at least a couple of minds. Back to our subject, Mr. Kidega, waste management and recycling. Poor waste management is increasingly becoming the biggest problem in many urban centers. Kasese municipality is no exceptional. I think now we should be asking ourselves, what causes poor waste management in most of our urban centers across the country? And what are those options now to curtail this challenge? For example, in Kasese municipality, we are experiencing a very big challenge of poor disposal of garbage, which ends up in the already inadequate drainage channels, causing blockages and hence flooding. However, this challenge, Mr. Kidega and my fellow panelists, I have attributed it to a number of factors. The first one is that most residents cannot afford to pay for poor waste collection and disposal services. We also have inadequate waste management facilities. We have limited drainage systems, and the need for better community awareness and education is also needed. I think our leaders should give this one a priority, including ourselves, journalists. We need to create awareness about the damages of poor waste management. We also have the absence of central or designated sites for waste dumping, inconsistency in waste collection by the responsible farms. For example, in Kasese municipality, we have responsible farms, and when you go on ground, they are not doing the needful. Can you imagine? Instead of using trucks, they use tuk-tuks. I don't know whether you'll be able to understand this. The three-wheel motorcycle. This is what is used in Kasese municipality by the responsible farms. I think something is really needed to be done. We also have insufficient funds for fuel, to fuel vehicles at the municipalities in our urban centers. This has been a very big challenge. When you try to interact with those official guys at the municipalities, at the urban centers, they will tell you we don't have fuel. And this one brings a lot of questions running in our minds. When these people are making budgets, do they have waste management in their considerations? Anyway, this is a question to all of us, and we really need to do the needful. We also have another factor, which is the increasing population density. This is also another factor. I think that is a little bit about my my introduction, Mr. Kidega. I can hand over the microphone to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Alex. Big Ben, let me come to you. Irene tried to bring it up. She tried to create the relationship between waste management, recycling, and climate change. But because I had not asked her that question, she did not expand and go deep into it. She simply, spoke on the surface. But let me put the question to you now. what is the relationship between climate change and waste management and recycling? Because one way or another, I believe that there is a connection. There is a relationship between how the environment and waste is managed vis-a-vis the climate change. Irene spoke about issues around floods, issues around drought. All that is areas around climate change. But could you try to create the relationship between climate change and waste management?
Thank you very much, Kidega. Actually, given my background and experience in green growth, climate change, and environmental sustainability, this is a serious topic of interest. Relating waste management and recycling with climate change, actually, waste management is driving waste, if not managed well, is the biggest driving factor to climate change. When waste is not managed well, it has effects that really go up to affecting the environment and then in the end leading to climate change. That's why I always relate those three things: the green growth, climate change, then environmental sustainability, because none of them is independent. They go hand in hand. Then they are also coupled with the development. All these three or four attributes go hand in hand. But when I look at waste disposal and management leading to climate change, an example could be when there is littering of plastic, that form of waste in the environment, the soil is affected, whereby the organ also when they are dumped, the soil or the environment is not, it is affected, does not do its services. Then finally, we have changes in the environment. Take another example of waste, like agricultural waste, especially waste from animals, even people. If disposed in the environment, you will have gases, especially carbon related to the atmosphere. And this leads to depletion of the layer, the ozone layer that protects, thus opening up and increasing the temperatures on Earth. So in the end, we have changes in temperatures, changes in humidity or rainfall amounts, thus climate changing and affecting us because we are equally dependent on the environment for food, survival, shelter. So if we don't dispose of waste properly, and the different forms of waste I talked about and their sources, we shall have our climate changing. And when droughts or deserts increasing, that means reducing the available land for production. And we know most of our economies depend on production, which is agriculture. But if the land, like the Karamoja area is almost becoming a desert, but some of these causes are the gases resulting from poor disposal of waste. We see they affect the ozone layer. And when the ozone is depleted or affected because of the element of carbon and emissions from these particular wastes, we shall have climate change. And that's why we call for really managing these wastes properly and the different forms so that we can reduce the effects of climate change. Climate change has come and is not going, but we need to adapt and live with it. But one of the ways is to properly manage the source of the causes, which is one of them is proper management of waste. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Big Ben. I can see Baluku has again left us, but Rachel Amongin, let me come to you. And the question is going to focus more around industrial waste, waste that comes from industries and all those things. Rachel and other viewers, the Western powers developed their economic strength largely through industrialization, right? All these industries that they set up, all these mining industries, all these coal industries they set up, and the amount of waste that they were emitting, I think, was at 101%. The point is they had so much waste emission. So Uganda and many other low developed countries are trying to also develop, they're trying to get that economic power moving. They're trying to industrialize, they're trying to set up industries, they're trying to create jobs. And now here is the issue of climate change. Here is the issue of waste management. So where is the silver lining? Where is the middle ground, rather? Where we can say that, okay, let us industrialize and develop. But as we do this, let's do it in a sustainable manner, in a way that we don't damage the environment. Where is that middle ground? How can we industrialize, develop, but at the same time not damage the environment and not explicitly use all the available resources? How can we find that common ground? Rachel.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. It's a very wide question, but when you talk about having a common ground pertaining the waste management and industrialization, it all comes down to one thing. It is education. Education, I think, is one of the solutions to curb waste management. So if you're to educate, you have to start from a lower level and build it up. How? Education comes from initiating it in schools. Environmental consciousness within schools and universities may be the best way to reach large groups and the future generations. So if you're educating the masses on environmental consciousness, the next thing you have to think of is merging proper waste management practices requiring a collaboration between the public and private sector. So if there are industries like Coca-Cola, for instance, that is in Namamve, that is producing, like Irene mentioned it earlier on, in our days when we were young, we had the glass bottles. It is not until then that these other plastics were introduced. So for us to curb the waste management, we have to involve Coca-Cola into the picture. How? They have to promote the need for recycling. They put it there. I call it greenwashing. They always say that, we are going to, do recycle. They even put it on their bottles. But at the end of the day, as someone in Kona Kamdini or someone somewhere else, does not really look at the bottle and so much read it and find out that, they told me to recycle it. No. You have to go, and that's why we call it CSR, corporate social responsibility. As a company, you have to, or as an industry, you have to go into the ground and educate the different communities on the uses or on the benefits of recycling. So that's why you find that of late, there are people within the local communities, the thing they're going to look at is, if I've bought a soda, a bottle, a plastic, I am going to recycle it. In that, I will use it as a bottle for my cooking oil, which is something that is an initiative from a person. Yeah? But now the industries that are the very people that are manufacturing a lot of these things, they have to take up their responsibilities very well. So that's why I talk about environmental consciousness. The other thing is the companies like Coca-Cola, let's say Rwenzori, Pepsi, have to initiate a program or something called waste separation. It's very important for recycling. I think I've seen it in the UK and countries like Denmark, whereby they have that system of waste separation. You go, there are the grounds, there are places or sites where you go and dump your waste according to what it is. If it's a plastic, if it's glass, if it's wood, different. Therefore, there is their need to educate the different masses or local communities or the local man down there in different areas, because it would solve different problems. It would also curb the acts of unlawful waste disposal from the different people. I myself may be a part of it, and also serves as a means of generating income for the residents. So if imagine that, we do not want industrialization to go down. But one thing that we need to educate even the companies themselves, because at the end of the day, someone is looking at, I am getting my money. You're not looking at the environment. You're not looking at the health of the different communities that you're impacting. So Coca-Cola is going to go ahead and manufacture a bottle. It's going ahead to bottle whatever, even the contents of the soda. It does not relay that information that it's a bit harmful to what? To the people. So you find that the fact that we bring the companies on board and let them know that, fine, you want to make the money, but do you care about the consumers? What do they go through at the end of the day? Them should come up with a campaign that they need to reduce on the plastics that are going around in the streets of either Kampala or, any other city. That is initiating either programs or, different innovations in that you develop sites or put in sites either within Namamve or like different cities or outstanding cities within Uganda that you can put, that people can, instead of having to throw it in a drainage system that is going to end up blocking, and at the end of the day, the drainages are going to flood. And if out of the flooding, there is going to be, inhibition of different diseases like cholera, dysentery, and other diseases that are very deadly, Coca-Cola or any other company would resort to having disposable sites, meaning they would recycle their bottles, that's why it's a bit sorrier to get glass bottles or beer bottles out, but the plastic is a very huge thing. The other thing, when you come down to something to do with, let's borrow a leaf from a country like Denmark. After, I think in the 90s or 80s, when they were hit by cholera, is when they decided to come up with a proper drainage system for the city. And Uganda apparently has not borrowed a leaf and has not learned that we are always hit by such diseases that are waterborne. That's the cholera, the typhoid, the dysentery, and all that. And if we would merge the public sector, like I said, that is, let's say, involving government to work all layers hand in hand with these industries that are the very people that are producing a lot of these plastics, it would help educate people, and it would also help create a better environment. But most importantly, to me as a youth, it would create job opportunities. Because I want you, all the viewers who are listening to this, or anyone who is on the panel, imagine if Coca-Cola set up a dumping site for all the plastics. How many people was it going to, how many youths? Because I know the youths in Uganda constitute 70% of the population. So how many people are going to be employed in that plant? We're always crying about employment, but there are very many ways that we can create employment, because we are looking at the effects of climate change. You're going to go to, let's say, Kiriandongo, you're going to go to Chakaboga village in Hoima, and you try to talk to someone about climate change, and they do not know about it. But you're going to have to enter in depth to explain to them. That's why advocating, educating them is going to raise awareness. The moment someone is informed, they are able to make a decision. They're able to voice out certain things. Like, for instance, in Chakaboga, those were people who were resettled from land that was acquired by government for the oil refinery. Apparently, in the place that they are settled in, there is nothing like a tree. There are no trees. And who was behind the destruction of the trees? It's the government itself. For certain things to be put in place, obvious case, you'll have retaliation from other people, but we have to advocate for the proper disposal of waste. Let it be human waste, let it be, man-made or solid waste. It is all important. That's why you find people making reports and telling you, within this village, I was only able to find that there are this number of toilets, and you can't blame them. It's because they do not know. they're used to barbaric and archaic ways. But the more you educate a person is not going to change within an instance. It takes time. So you have to keep talking. You have to keep telling them. That's why if you educate, you put in a program of educating kids. I like the program that goes around. It's not a program. I think it's a campaign about growing trees. And they've been targeting it from schools. When you start it from schools, the generation of then, let's look at the generation 5 years from now, 10 years from now, there are decisions that they are not going to make because they know they were educated. So it all comes down to environmental consciousness, that even the industries that are polluting the environment, because I think Irene mentioned it, we are all already experiencing effects of climate change. And I think it's already happening in cases whereby they're always looking at the floods happening. I remember some ladies sometime back lost her life because of flooding, the drainage. So you look at all these instances and you want to put a stop to that. So when you educate people, they are informed. When they are informed, they're able to make better decisions. So even the people within the industry, the people who are handling that money, or the makers of that money who are enjoying the profits, may not be also educated. So you have to bring them on ground and tell them, okay, my dear, you're seeing this and this and this. You're producing, you want profits. Fine. But can you put in measures that mitigate certain things? That even if you yourself, you're walking or driving your car, whatever it is, along the street, and you see a bottle of Coca-Cola lying along the road, how would you feel? And you know it's your company. You're the executive director, but you'll drive past it because it's not in your mind. So if the people in the top management are not even able to realize that certain things they're doing are wrong, you do not expect even me, my local, leaders down there, or my own father or grandfather to, follow. Because sometimes people borrow lifts from different people or different countries or different, systems. So the only thing I'll say is education is a solution to waste management. I think that's all I have to say in case there's any other. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Rachel. That was, I must say, quite elaborate. Irene, let me come to you. Could you just do us some justice in terms of explaining what you mean by a recycling process? Does it mean that each and every single waste must be recycled? For example, tins, caveras, or whatever it is, does every waste have to be recycled? And what categories of waste are we looking at? There is human waste, which I believe, some of our biology taught us that this human waste, or maybe this animal waste, is good for manure, something like that. So is that part of recycling? The point is, what do you mean by recycling a waste? And what is the ideal process of this recycling? Does it mean that I should maybe look for animal waste and take it to maybe a farm, or I should find maybe if it is tangible waste, then maybe looking at collecting bottles and taking them somewhere, and then they are recycled, they are washed and cleaned. I don't know, this whole recycling process, what is entailed in it? Irene.
Thank you, Moses. Recycling, like my previous speaker, they've said there are different waste that can be recycled. That is human waste, sword, and at the same time, sword is like physical. So to me, I think even human waste, when we talk about human, we mean like even animals, like you said, animals produce cow dung, but you find, since agriculture is the backbone of our economy, like Uganda, so the human waste from animals, they need to be recycled. Like you said, talked about the cow dung. That cow dung can act as manure. So if the communities or the people in communities are aware that cow dung is a waste product, but it can be recycled into like manure. First of all, we need to know that recycling, it is a process. It means like you're changing something old or something useless into something variable. So when we talk about cow dung, it means that it can be recycled into manure. So, and manure will help in growth of agriculture. At the same time, it can also help in making we can call them smart stoves. Some people are very creative that they can use manure, sand, and other things to make what is it called, to make charcoal. And in that, you find they are reducing on the waste disposal of animals. I'm not aware whether human waste can also be recycled. Yes, it can also be recycled, because to the communities that are educated, when their toilets gets full, they have to transport that waste into other places. So in that, it is also the way of recycling if they are educated. But then, like what Rachel has talked about, communities in rural areas, they need really public awareness that when you visit rural communities, you find most of them, they even don't have toilets. They don't have where to dispose their waste. So they just go in bush, they go in banana plantations, which is bad and which is basically also causing air pollution. In that, you find you go into a press and you find the press is totally smearing, not because they want it, but because they really don't know what that waste causes. So and when we talk about recycling, I'm very sure that every disposal you throw outside, it can be recycled. Talk of these bottles. When you use the Gwenzol bottles, they can be recycled. So in this, I call upon the industrial companies, government leaders, and other responsible private sectors and other responsible people to set up the recycling offices in Uganda. When they set them up, they need to educate people, like what are the things that are supposed to be recycled. We really don't know the things that are supposed to be recycled, but I'm very sure when you set up the recycling offices or recycling industries, the people who are unemployed, they are going to be employed in those sectors. They are going to get jobs, and in that, we shall also help sensitize people to teach them what are the materials or litter that need to be recycled. After teaching them, it will help us to create public awareness on how to recycle. Like we talk about the glasses, we talk about the cupboards, these chairs, they can be recycled. But if the chair gets old and you just dispose it off, it means that it is going to decay. So after decaying, after decaying, it is going to cause soil contamination. It is going to be washed away by rain. So in that, it will contaminate the water that we are drinking. We talk on the local levels, especially the waters from wells and springs. So you find that the community is really suffering from contamination of water. It will lead to spread of diseases like infections. So now they are also incurring the cost of going to the hospital, yet they can dispose of their waste in a proper way to really help in reduction of spread of diseases due to poor disposal. I really don't know whether I have answered your question, but that's best I can go.
Okay, Irene, thank you. Yes, indeed you have. You have in an amazing way. Big Ben, let me just pick it up from where Irene has stopped. Irene mentions government and private players and other stakeholders. My question to you is that, yes, we know that government has a responsibility to its people, And I believe that the Constitution is one of those documents that explains the social contract between government and the people. So we know that government has gone ahead to set up authorities like the National Environmental Management Authority, among others. Yeah. So my question to you is, could you speak to the role of government? Do you think that the government institutions that have been established and charged with the responsibility of managing the environment, do you think they have the capacity? Do you think they have what it takes to actually regulate and manage the way the environment is used, to regulate waste management, to set up recycling policies, all these necessary frameworks to ensure that waste is managed? So speak to the role of government, and in terms of capacity of the government authority charged with the responsibility of managing the environment. Do they have what it takes, or there is something still wanting?
Thank you very much, Kidega. Actually, I first of all go back to Irene's submission. Waste management. Waste is managed in a number of ways, depending on its source, its type, majorly those, and recycling is one of the ways it is managed. Then the other ways could be stored. Storage is one of them. Then also it can be treated. There is also a recovery process. Certain products or the dangerous elements of the waste can be extracted from the waste, and now it is no longer a harmful or hazardous to the environment. So then also the way it is disposed. There are ways of disposal that are safe to the environment. You have seen some particular waste being buried underground, a number of feet underground, and we have also seen waste incinerated. Then we have seen also waste burnt. We have also seen waste being transformed into other products. So recycling is just one of them, but there are various ways of managing this waste. And the essence is to keep it safe with the minimum harm to the environment and the occupants within the environment. When I go back to your question of government role in management of waste, government has a mandate through the line ministry and the various departments at district level, then also municipal level, which are charged with the management. Now we talk about the environment. We have departments at the municipal district level with the staff charged with the managing waste as one of the components in that department. Then also government has gone ahead also to set up like an entity like NEMA that is fully fledged, funded, and also supported to do its role, play a role of regulating, managing, and foreseeing that waste and environment are in line with the agreed principles. My only concern is that, yes, the staff are there, but I think they are not enough. They are not enough in terms of numbers, even in terms of training. You see, handling waste requires different disciplines. There are engineers who are supposed to innovate. There are also social scientists who are supposed to train the masses. There are also innovative ideas. The private sector to come in and play. So government needs to take up a multi-sectoral approach whereby players like private sector, CSO, the communities themselves are all involved, so that it is a common problem and it is solved. Because now, especially private sector in managing of waste is very important, because they have capacity, and also some of them, it is a business. These are green jobs. They can create jobs from this. It can be a point to earn. So government is there, and it has a primary law, the mandate embedded in the policies, but some of them, implementation of these policies is still lacking. And so we call upon government to really come up and help community, because another thing you see that we have educated people in the country, like professors. This is the area we need to call up professors in those who are in water, those who are in engineering, those who are in research, to do research, and then also come up with the prototypes of possible projects within waste management. There are so many things we can do, but government is not investing a lot. Then we also need to do a lot of resource mobilization, because waste management projects are really very expensive, and government may not be able to fund them. But the only challenge with the government that I see is that it is a very bureaucratic way where to get, you can even identify a funder or somebody interested in patterning for a project managing waste, but the process you go through to get this funder together with to get this funder approve a project is really a very rigorous project, and the government has frustrated even the city and the invest, even private sector, because you will have, say, the MOU is going to be taken to Solicitor General, to who and who. So the process is rigorous and really affects implementation. So government is a big player and has the mandate, but it really needs to work on those shortfalls. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Big Ben. Rachel, let me come to you. Rachel, truth be told, the world today is a capitalistic environment. Everyone is looking for money, and certain scholars have defined it as a man-eat society, man-eat-man society. You know, everyone for himself. So I am trying to imagine us trying to convince a given industry X that, hey, you guys, you know what, you need to limit your waste disposal, or you need to limit the amount of carbon emissions that your industry is producing, because we are trying to protect the environment. Or you're trying to tell this person who maybe produces water bottles that, hey, you need to also have a framework that demonstrates how you intend to recycle or recollect the used bottles of your company. So this is instead levying more costs of production on these different companies. I think it is somehow unrealistic. But anyway, the question, to be specific to you, is that where is the economic benefit that comes with waste management? Irene mentions unemployment, how youth can be employed, maybe in this recycling process. Yes, that is one. But where is the economic benefit that our capitalists, who are so many in Uganda today, can say, okay, I need to participate in waste management. I need to participate in recycling because there is a tangible benefit. Where is the value chain? Does this ecosystem, because I believe that this is partly an ecosystem, moving from one stage to another, the value chain, where is the economic benefit that someone can be, because, you know, people are encouraged usually by money, by the monetary gains. So I believe that if we can begin to show citizens and the population the monetary benefit that comes with them participating in waste management and recycling, then maybe we can motivate them and encourage them to actually play an active role. But for as long as we just continue to beg them and say, hey, you guys, you know what, climate change is here, you know, I think many will take long to understand the whole concept. But if there is an economic benefit attached to it, I think they can be motivated quickly. So maybe in your own words, could you try to demonstrate the benefit that could come out economically from waste management and recycling?
Thank you so much for that question. Like you said, you noted it out, which is very good and it's very true. Most people look into the aspect of what do I benefit, how do I gain out of it. But recycling, already there are very many people who are benefiting out of it. Like personally, like I, during my senior six vacation with my grandparents, we engaged into something known as making briquettes. And I think very many people have benefited out of it or are already informed about briquettes. So the benefit of using briquettes, if I make briquettes where I use soil or sand, depending on how people use it. Some people use cassava flour, some people use, it depends. Whatever formulation you use, you've made your briquettes. So if I've made my briquettes, I am going to produce a form of energy. And if I'm producing a form of energy, I'm able to use them to cook. So if I am cooking my food, I am saving on buying charcoal, or I am saving on using gas. So the economic implication, I think you see it there, that someone is pushed to save. And if you're saving, you're also going to save the environment. The fact that you're saving your pocket, pulling out whatever money it is, you're also saving the environment. The introduction of briquettes, for instance, very many people started using less charcoal. There are people that I know that said it benefited them. Even me personally, I'm a farmer. I'm a poultry and piggery farmer. And the briquettes helped me during something known as brooding, when you bring the chicks. So those days I was looking at, I used to use almost 15 bags of charcoal for brooding chicken. But as of now, I used to close to around 3 to 4, 5. That is if I incorporate something known as briquettes. And briquettes is something that is molded out of, like Irene said, recycling, reusing. You've remolded waste into something which is a form of energy. So at the end of the day, it helps benefit the environment. Environmentally, there are gases that are not emitted, because we all know that I think very few people, people mention, we are now below, is it 2 degrees, bichi. People don't really understand, sorry to mention that, but you should put yourself in this position that just imagine you're underneath a blanket or a duvet, and there is a heat coming from either you or whatever source of heat that you have underneath, and it just goes and bounces on the duvet, and automatically it's going to come down. So that heat that is contained, that is what we call greenhouse gases. But I will go back to exactly what you said, what you've talked about, the benefits. The benefits of waste management economically, it saves on natural resources, meaning we are not going to have people cutting a lot of the trees. Like I know in West Nile, particularly Zoka Forest. Zoka Forest is suffering implications of what we call deforestation. And this is because Uganda, like I think the previous speaker mentioned, that we have laws or we have systems in place, but because of bureaucracy, there is a bit of the implementation of them is minimal. And now look at an instance whereby Kenya, I think, I don't remember exactly which year, banned or put a ban or put a law that put a stop to the making of charcoal. But they did not put a ban on the importation of charcoal into their country. But the same thing happened in Uganda. I think it was there, but it was not. It's the same thing if you return and look back at the Kavera issue. I remember there was a time where it worked for some time, and then within thin air, it had also, disappeared. We should not always look at the benefit economically. Let's look at also other benefits health-wise. It's like how the Bible teaches us, love yourself. Also love your neighbors. It's the same thing. If we have this mentality of always looking at the benefit economically, it's going to hinder us. So that's why I would also say, like Irene mentioned, it will strengthen our economy and it will create jobs. Like I mentioned earlier on, many people, imagine how many people will be employed in those recycling plants or something. Because for waste to be managed, like the previous speaker mentioned, there are different ways. There's recycling, there's incinerating and what. But before all that takes place, there's something known as sorting, separating, which I don't think we really have so much in Uganda as a country. I find people, if you pass along, I think Chirikas, you're going to Kabaka's side, there are women, you always get there, or different young people who do what? Who are sorting Kaveras. But even if they are sorting it, there is also an implication to their health. They do not have protective gear of that. So the mentality of what do we economically benefit out of it should somehow not be the bigger picture. It should be, how do I save on the little that I have based on already the climate change impacts that Uganda is going through. And I think I remember there was someone who mentioned in TV sometime back that, I did not know that even Europe would undergo climate change, because there was a time when it was flooding and they didn't really expect to be flooding. So it's like right now, this is a season that, we didn't expect rain. There's been a different rain pattern. So look at it that if you're going to recycle the waste that would have, I think, destroyed the soil profile or destroyed whatever organisms are within the soil, like the earthworms that help with the aeration of the soil, automatically a farmer like me is going to be able to plant my maize in whatever, if it's an acre or half an acre. Yeah, I plant my maize. I'm going to yield better yields. But because of something to do with poor waste management, very few people are yielding out of whatever they plant. And I will be someone who will attest to that, because those days I would plant and you'd be getting, maybe you expect certain number of bags, but now you can't because the soil has been polluted. That's why as much as possible, I try, or I guess the other people out there who always try as they dig. And if you get into contact with anything like plastic, you remove it out because it has implications. It creates jobs for people. It also benefits government services. In addition to boosting the employment rates and job opportunities, recycling generates tax revenues to support government services such as public health, we know that, transportation, safety, social service programs, and, recycling companies. And if you have a recycling company, if it's put in place, the employees and the recycling companies themselves, obviously they pay taxes to government, and that helps improve systems like I just mentioned, or social services like public health and safety. The other thing, it improves on the imports and exports. Recycling also helps the country's imports and exports balance. Now, for instance, scrap commodities are raw materials that are used in creation of different products. So I think something to do with if I see people moving around and a person's like, I'm looking for nails. So I imagine sometimes I ask myself, why is the person particularly looking for a certain kind of metal? But at the end of the day, the person is going to take and sell it to the company that is recycling, and a different thing is going to be made out of it. And I remember yesterday during MTN, I think it's a program known as Nsindikanja K. I think the chancellor or someone, he has a position within MOBS. He mentioned a statement that I really loved, and I really look forward to it almost every day. It is, we Ugandans need to learn to create certain things for ourselves, in that we should avoid the habit of having to import. So we are importing things to do with toothpicks. We are importing things to do with, earbuds. We're importing the things that we shouldn't be importing. We should instead be making them. So if someone decides to recycle certain materials that is able to make certain things, you're economically benefiting yourself as an individual, but you're also economically going to contribute to the country's economy or the country's growth. So I would end by saying that there is a lot of benefit out of waste management. It doesn't necessarily have to dwell on the economic part, but also the health part. But economically, it creates opportunities. It expands local employer opportunities. And it's also a point for government to collect taxes and improve on our services. Thank you.
All right, Rachel, thank you for that. Irene, let me come back to you as we try to move towards the end of this particular conversation. Uganda is not short of laws. One of you mentioned it earlier on. I'm not sure who that was, but one of you said that Uganda is not short of laws. We have so many good laws to the extent that people even don't know some of these laws. Yeah. So, but then the question would be that how do we strike a balance? Because Uganda's economy is still one that is very small. People, are struggling to survive with now the high cost of commodities, high cost of fuel. People's living standards has actually been affected so much. So the cheaper alternative is that if I go to a market, I can go with my kavera of 100 shillings, rather than me going to the market and buying my tomatoes, then it being packed in a paper bag where I have to pay extra 1,000 Uganda shillings to procure a paper bag. So how do we move forward from this position? Because people are trying to save costs. But then if we are to deliberate, how do we find a balance between, having deliberate laws that, protect the environment vis-a-vis the economic disadvantage or the burden it levies on the consumer in terms of an additional cost towards consumption? So just speak to that, Irene. Then after Irene, we shall move towards our way forwards and recommendations, and then we shall be able to close this conversation. Irene, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Moses. In line with government laws and environmental laws, like at first when you went off, I was saying that we need first of all to make sure that Ugandans or government leaders reduce this vice of corruption that we are dealing with. It is very important to note that government leaders are selfish to the extent that they are making the vulnerable suffer on their behalf. Take an example of these projects that are going on, the destruction of Bugoma Forest in Hoima district, the Eco project. You find that all these projects, government are running them to benefit themselves, but not to benefit the communities that are basically being affected by the effects that these projects are causing. Take an example like Rachel has mentioned about Chakaboga, where they were the resettlement of the pups, and you find that they are not trees. In Uganda, they have a nice law, which is a tree planting act, 2012. But that act, you find that the government itself, it's the one involved in cutting down of trees. Let us look at Bugoma Forest. At Bugoma Forest, you find the government leaders are the one involved in cutting trees in Bugoma Forest in the name of planting sugarcane with this company of Hoima Sugar Limited Company. So you find basically government sets good laws, but it becomes so hard for them to implement them. So what about the low person or the vulnerable person there in the village who even don't know what a law is, who don't know what is taking place in the country? So I think in Uganda, government leaders, they need really to first appreciate that they are our leaders. They are not leaders of themselves. So if they do projects that benefit them and living out the affected communities, we are not going to move forward. Instead, we are going to remain behind, and other leaders or government leaders, those educated people, are going to move forward, and we are leaving the illiterate people behind. So talking about laws, government need first appreciate that they are working for the people, not for themselves. But because it is run by selfish, corrupt leaders, we are going to face the challenges of implementing the good laws that we are having as Ugandans. Moving forward, you see that if we can talk about the campaigns that are going on, who knows you in these campaigns when you are to benefit, like you talk, Big Ben talked about funds for recycling and for proper management, but you find the people who are dealing in the same industry or in the same sector are the same people who are being employed in the same sector. So you find that to benefit in these funds that are going on for proper disposal, they are the same people or in the same family that the funds are benefiting the family members and leaving out the people that are being affected by the poor disposal of waste. So you find that if really government leaders cannot admit that they are serving communities, not serving themselves, we are going to remain behind, and our good laws that we are having are not going to be implemented. We are going to continue facing the challenges, while the vulnerable like us, we are facing the challenges. Good people or like government leaders are benefiting because they care about themselves alone. We are being left behind. They don't care about our mothers. What are they facing? Because when they cut trees in the name of planting sugar cane, the kilo of sugar is expensive. Most families, as of now, you've talked about price increase. Most families no longer take sugar because it is expensive. But you find government is cutting trees, the tree that can help vulnerables in growing their crops to plant sugar, and yet they cannot manage to purchase even a kilo of sugar. You find it is a challenge to all of us, but we do not know how to go about it. Our parents don't know how to go about it. And another thing, I think there is a need of public awareness and sensitization of laws to the local people. Maybe if we advocate for these good laws in local communities, they understand the laws, they can come up, they can raise the voice in a movement, they can demonstrate peacefully in a movement, and maybe their voices or their grievances can be heard by the government leaders or can be heard by the relevant sectors. So there is a need of education of laws in communities. And in that, maybe to reduce on corruption and other vices in Uganda, we need to start from grassroots. We start from schools, from primary school. We teach them what is going on in Uganda, what are the challenges that we are facing, and how best we can mitigate, or how best we can solve these challenges. Talk of climate change. We all know that by 2030, Uganda is looking forward to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. But to me, I think it will be very hard, because what are the Sustainable Development Goals? How many people know about these goals? When you do research, you find that most of the Africans are dying because of hunger. They don't have what to eat. The prices are increasing. They are really facing a lot of challenges. And all these challenges are caused by climate change impacts. And these climate change impacts are basically being contributed by the government leaders who are the very people who are supposed to save us, who are supposed to save the communities from these challenges. So I think there is a role that we as community leaders, we need to do. We start from the grassroots of people, sensitize them, what are our laws that are governing us to run this country, and how best can we achieve it. In this, when we make noise and when we really bring out voices together, to some extent, maybe government can hear us out, and yes, we are doing wrong. Let us save our communities from these challenges, and maybe we increase efforts in implementing the laws that are already existing. Thank you.
Okay, Irene, let me just stay with you. So our time is fast spent, so I'll give you 2 minutes to give us your last words and any recommendations. So I'll begin with Irene, then I'll go to Big Ben, then I'll conclude with Rachel.
Thank you. My recommendation is that proper waste management, it is everyone's responsibility, whether government, whether industrial companies, whether the vulnerable, it is everyone's responsibility to make sure that our environment is kept clean and safe and healthy for our future and for the better of our children. And another extra mile, government should take up the responsibility to make sure that the vulnerables or the local people do understand by what is environment and how best we can protect the environment from climate change, and how we can really promote the green economy for the future of us all. Thank you very much. Thank you, CCG, for this opportunity. We are very grateful, and we look forward to really keep in touch in community engagement to protect our country, to protect our environment, to protect our future as well. I remain Twandiwe Irene, Executive Director, Women for Green Economy Movement Uganda. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Irene. Let's hear from Ben.
Yes, thank you very much. In my conclusion, I would love to mention, come back down to the layman, to the local population. Some of the strategies we can use, or some of the activities that we can do, is in order to protect the environment and have sustainable livelihoods, because the end goal is sustainable livelihoods. When you combine green growth, climate change, and environmental sustainability, you are moving towards the sustainable development, which is the development that caters for the needs of today, then, and the needs and the potential of those who are coming after us, to able also to meet their needs from the same environment. So our acts really matter, because what you do now is going to affect your grandchildren later. Those people who are promoting dumping of waste into the environment, like especially this hazardous, dangerous material into the environment without treating or protecting the environment, they are detrimental to the future. So one of the strategies or actions we can do is train, sensitize communities and households on handling waste. We shall start with the household waste. Let them handle it very well, especially changing their mindset on sorting, grading, so that we have different bins where we deposit this waste. We have green bins, the blue bins, where you can put biodegradable material or one that decomposes, then glass, rubber. So we have different dumping positions so that those that can be broken down or recycled should be recycled even at household level. Then two, we sorting at source is also connected to the first one, households and whatever entity is producing waste should sort it at all. Dumping or managing it becomes easier. But you find waste with the medical waste, needles, pesticides, you find the glass. So it is hard to work with such waste. Then also policies. Our politicians should really enact and also push for implementation of policies and laws that really promote environmental sustainability. Like we can formulate bylaws at lower levels, could be village, parish, at a sub-county, that really train and restrict people on proper management of waste. Then thirdly, we also need to use a multi-stake approach whereby we have a number of stakeholders interested in waste management coming together and protecting the environment. The environmentalists, all those researchers, all of them practitioners, politicians will come together. Civil society, all of them, government. Then also we need to do advocacy, advocate for environmental management, environmental sustainability. Let's advocate and become the voice for the voiceless. There are companies that are dumping their waste in our rivers. There are big institutions that are really polluting the environment. Which laws and can we advocate that our forces, the community or masses can help to really change their mind or to cause government take action, because government has the power to take action on them. Then also we can recycle, reuse, resize the waste that we have, especially the biodegradable. But importantly, the mindset of people needs to be changed. I think I appreciate the opportunity given to me. And whenever there is an opportunity, I'm also an agroecologist. We promote agriculture, which focuses on farming with nature, agroecology, so which includes organic agriculture and others, which caters for the environment. You need to do some of these practices so that the future also can meet their needs. So whatever we do is our responsibility, and we need also to cater for the needs of the future. Our future is our nature. So currently where we are, for us, we in our future perhaps, but there is a generation that is coming that needs to find this environment better than we found it. Thank you very much. I appreciate.
Yes, thank you very much, Ben. Let us move to Rachel finally. Rachel, your last words?
Thank you all. My last words in terms of recommendations, I would first and foremost, I think, ask that we avoid waste. That is number one. In terms of if you do not need to use a Kavera, why would you have it? Avoid it. Either put it away or reuse it, one way or the other. Number two is we should learn to undertake community cleanup exercises. These are things that are voluntary, that can be done as a community, can be done as an institution, as a company or something. Then also sensitization and awareness campaigns, just like what Ben mentioned. Education. The moment someone is educated, they are empowered, and they're empowered to make a right decision. Number three is undertaking solid waste reuse mechanisms. For instance, let's look at straws. We can, if people are taught the right way or enabled or, given the tools, you can make art out of straws. The same thing with bottles, like let's say wine bottles. I learned recently from my young sister how to use an empty wine bottle for a decoration within your sitting room or something. It can also be a form or an area that you put in maybe some plants, the small plants, depending, decoration. Then also we can also introduce, if government would undertake levying and collecting solid waste fees from the generators that can be within a community or something, whereby if you look at within a village, we find that there is waste that we generate as a village or as a parish, being small. You start small and grow big. So if we come as an area and decide that, we all we dump, we do this and this, we'll be paying maybe 2,000 or 1,000 every week for this and this and this, for this waste to be removed. We hire a cow to do this and this, to have it either taken to a dumping site or incinerated, because I see it around the area that I stay. Then the other thing is, the last thing that I would want to say is, I would really want to encourage the youth, the youth, the old people, the private sector, the government itself, to really take up the issue of waste management very serious. Just like Ben mentioned, it has an implication on generations to come. We may not really feel it right now, but our children's children or children's children's children will have the impact of the decisions that we make. So let's stand strong on whatever words. It starts with an individual, then it becomes a community. Just like it says, a community raises a child. So please, thank you so much, and let's do away with waste. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Rachel. Thank you, Ben, and thank you, Irene, for sparing the time to be on the community show. It has been amazing to have you. You've given us very great insights. I'm sure that our viewers have learned a lot from you, and so have I. From us to you, we wish you a lovely afternoon, but also wish you a lovely week ahead. Bye-bye. Thank you. Take care. Until next week. See you.